Alloys. What do you see around alloys?
I think that sustainability is something that is increasing. Everybody wants to be able to cast with a more dirty alloy, but maintain their properties. Meaning that you need to be able to have a process that can create as little defects as possible in order to enable to use a more dirty alloy. I think that is something that is coming more and more. And we have also learned that different alloying elements increases the CO2 footprint. So being able to cast with an alloy that allows as small CO2 footprint as possible due to its composition, that ought to also to be an advantage.
So when you talked earlier about dirty, you mean the elements that are within the alloy and not the CO2 footprint. So what's the key to getting sustainable and highly recycled alloys? And why are they especially useful for Rheocasting?
I mean, Rheocasting require a solidification interval, and the more we can move away from the eutectic point in an aluminum silicon alloy, the larger process window we have in order to create a slurry. And that means that if we take silicon, for instance, if we can reduce that, we both increases the process window of creating a very stable slurry, but we also help the casting to have a lower CO2 footprint at the same time.
I have to dig a little bit deeper there. I was under the impression that in the old days, meaning 1 year ago, everybody was looking at aluminum silicon 10 alloys. That's like the standard composition give and take for making some kind of structural casting. And then we hear about companies in the US using aluminum silicon 7, aluminum silicon 8 somewhere. And then all of a sudden, we also understand that elongation is the big driver here for meeting requirements. But high-pressure die-casting of aluminum silicon 7, that's not super easy, right?
No, that gives certain challenges.
Yeah, because we have high speeds and we have a nastily big tooling.
And also a large solidification range.
Yeah, and now you say that with aluminum silicon 7, all of a sudden you increase the process window of Rheocasting.
Correct.
How low would you like to go?
We have tested alloys down to 2% of silicon, which doesn't give us that huge different, or not different, but difficult casting parameters, if I say like that. So somewhere.
It's more up to the customer to decide something with a low silicon.
Yeah, let me say like this: there's probably going to be a lot of alloy development in the future, because we have added another tool in the toolbox, because we still provide the castability, which you don't really have when it comes to liquid casting. Meaning that the castability, what I mean then is that you can reduce the silicon content and still cast very thin walled castings.
I think we should give our listeners a bit of a background information. So not everybody is too deep into high-pressure die-casting. Usually high-pressure die-castings alloy have around 10 to 12% of silicon, which is exactly around the eutectic spot. So you have a very small processing window, which is ideal for liquid casting. But you have a lot of silicon needles, which requires a heat treatment, and you don't want to have a heat treatment on such a large casting. Therefore, you go down to 7% silicon to reduce the silicon content, but you also reduce the castability. And the interesting thing, which we can take out from here now, is that the silicon content doesn't really play a role in the castability with Rheocasting.
Correct. So you can obtain properties in perhaps obviously in us cast state. I mean, if you can do that instead of with heat treatment, where you get other problems such as warping in the heat treatment and so on, and then you need to straighten the part, can you have as little variation as possible, and perhaps in the end you can also get the casting out without needing any post operation such as straightening and things like that. It's more uniform. You get a more stable, complete process chain. of these large castings with the required properties.